Mary Howard, I am so excited to be with you today in conversation with me about you, celebrating wonderful you, and just a great privilege to really to celebrate you today. Talk about your life, not just your professional life, but your personal life and how they interact. I'd like to introduce you, well, first of all, as my dear friend. We met on Twitter. Let me say that first of all. I didn't know who you were. And after a while, I couldn't not know who you were because you were everywhere on Twitter and Facebook. And I guess the most important thing I want to say about you is you are the most generous, kind-hearted, gracious person that I know, professionally and personally. And so it was really important to me to have you on the conversation and to talk about what's really important in your life, in your educational life, and your personal life, which both are very interesting. You have been the voice of courage and reason for so many of us. So many times it's happened to me where I see something that you've written in a blog or on Twitter, or someone has told me about it on Facebook, and I'm thinking, oh, thank goodness she wrote that. I don't know if I would have had the courage to say it. And I'm like, yes, thank you, Mary. Um, and so we actually met on Twitter and started corresponding on Twitter, and then we became friends. And you actually came to my house, and I made you a fruit tart, and we got to know each other, and we've been close friends and dear colleagues ever since. And let me just say before I let you talk, because I know you have lots to say, I want to mention your first book. It was interesting when I went back to look at your books, RTI from All Sides, which was published in 2009. And this was really about response to intervention. You sometimes call it response to instruction. And it's about responsive teaching, which of course we all believe in, and differentiation, and making sure that all kids are getting tier one excellent teaching, and that covers most of the kids, and that the support that they need is less and less. And you've done a beautiful job with that book. I know you did another one on RTI. This one I love, and this was you did in 2012. Good to Great Teaching, and focusing on the literacy work that matters. And that is really a magnificent book because you talk about the teacher as professional decision maker and not relying on worksheets, but you said worth sheets, WORTH. I love that. And saying no to scripted programs and saying yes to professional judgment. In all the work that you have done, it's all about respect for the teacher. And I love that about you.
Thank you. Well, and I want to say I have your two books here that are always by my side. One, of course, is Literacy Essentials, which is kind of the holy grail of teaching to me. And then the other is a book that you can see it's dog-eared already, which happened right away, The Heart-Centered Teacher, which for me is a culmination, integration of everything I've learned from you since your first book in 1988, Transitions, because this is when you just branch out to all aspects of not only us as professionals, but us as humans. And that is just such a book that is near and dear to my heart.
Thank you, Mary. That's very kind. Well, the human part, for both of us, the humanity in teaching is what I think a lot of us are struggling with these days, where it feels like we're being forced to do work that really is not what's best for kids sometimes, just saying it bluntly. You made a big transition in your life recently where you moved from the mainland to Hawaii. And it's cold and rainy here. I'd like to be in Hawaii right now. And that story is really important because that's when you really took on really the theme of my book, the intersection of teaching, learning, and living. In order to have a full life and a good life, they all have to go together. So talk a little bit about that, and also about how that transition has helped you become more reflective, not just about teaching, but about your life in general.
Oh my goodness, in so many ways. And so I did move here about 2 years ago. Before the pandemic, I was traveling full time, generally on an airplane, maybe 3 weeks out of the month. And that was my life. And I remember when transitions came down, I mean, I just started going to and listening to everything you did, and you kept saying the words that I couldn't get out of my head: be a real person. And during the pandemic, I started thinking about, am I being a real person? I believe that, but am I doing that? And so in your beautiful heart-centered teacher book, which has just meant so much to me, you talk about that intersection of teaching and learning and living. And I was really good at the teaching and learning part. I mean, still to this day, I'm attending webinars, I'm reading research, I'm talking to teachers about research. But it occurred to me when I made the decision to move to Honolulu 2 years ago that the one thing that was missing was that real teacher part, that living part. So one of the things that definitely changed for me, I live right across the street from a harbor, a boat harbor. And every day for the last 750 days, I write on my Facebook a blog about what I do in the day every day. And every day I go out, whatever, we don't have time change, so whatever time it happens to be then, which now is pretty early, I go out to see the sunrise, and then I go to the harbor to watch sea turtles swimming in 2 feet of water, just to show you how different life is. Last night, I always check the beaches. I'm very much involved with the Hawaiian monk seals that are very endangered. So last night, I went twice to check, and then a couple of hours before the sunset, and lo and behold, my very dear friend Kai Evie was on the beach. And so I spent the next 3 hours sitting on the beach,
Wow.
being there to protect. That's what we do. We're not the official volunteers, but we're what I call the heart volunteers, where we make sure that people don't get too close. So what Hawaii has done for me is give me permission. And I know that sounds silly to say permission, but I was always I felt like my professional life was Mary Howard. That's who I was. Now I realize that my professional life, the teaching and the learning, were only one part of who I am. And I've discovered this person who can walk outside my front door, and my heart just fills with the love of the beauty I am allowed to see every single day. And Regie, I have made kind of a mantra in my life, and my mantra, especially on weekends are very precious to me. But what I always say is that is a day for no rules, no plan, no schedule, and no computer. When I was coming here in the past, I remember a singer saying, in Hawaii, we wake up in the morning, we lift our hands to the heavens, and we say, whatever. I'm learning the art of whatever. And everything in my life comes back to teaching. I think because of the mandates, we're losing the whatever. And the whatever is in the moment. The whatever is, this feels right for me to go to Haleiwa and see the sea turtles basking. In teaching, this feels right for me to do right now. I don't care what the script says. This feels in the moment. And it's that whatever I want in the living part of my life. And it's that whatever I want for my teachers that I trust and admire so much, to be able to say, in spite of this thing that I'm being given, right now, it's the whatever that matters most to me.
It's amazing, Mary. My heart is pitter patter listening to you. You've made a transformation. You have made a life transformation. I think that that's absolutely fantastic. You look happy.
I
While
am.
you were talking about what was going on at the beach and protecting, was it the monk seals you said?
Hawaiian monk seals.
Yeah, and I was thinking about how that relates to teaching. You are focusing on what's most important, and you're letting all the extraneous stuff that's not
Right.
important, and you're leading with your heart, and you've become very knowledgeable about the monk seals. It reminds me about what good teachers do
Mhm.
good to great teachers. You are a great teacher. Do in the classroom, make it relevant, and you're celebrating. You were
Yes.
not having a lot of celebration in your life because you were so busy working. And it all
Yes.
has to go together. And I love that, I would say, new part of you, a rebirth of celebrating your life and just, we don't have sunsets. I'm in Seattle and it's really cloudy and rainy today. I haven't seen a sunset in a long time, but we find other things to celebrate. Spring comes really early here. The daffodils are blooming, the rhododendrons are in bloom. So finding that celebration, which you are doing now in a way that I have not seen before. You've
No.
also changed the conversations from what you were saying. You're having different conversations with other people and yourself. Um, what are the conversations you think we need to be having today in education that we're not having? What are you noticing? Even in the use of social media, which I know is becoming more and more of a challenge for all of us. But for you who are out there, more than I am and more than most of us are, um, talking about the research, talking about the pressure that we're under, um, what are the conversations that you think we need to be having that we're not having?
Well,
Um,
for me, one of the conversations we need to be having, as you well know, these are some of the most challenging times, and we've been through a lot of challenges in education. But I believe this is kind of the one of the worst periods we've been in. So for me, one of the very important things that I'm doing professionally is fighting back for this profession. And I think we need to have conversations that illustrate that we're not, and kowtowing is not the word that I want. We're not giving in to whatever is hot in the moment. We're not giving in to what we're being told, whether that's media or politicians. We're being told by
yeah,
people who don't have the knowledge that you and I and the wonderful, amazing, brilliant teachers are constantly striving to have. We have to really ask ourselves, is what I'm hearing or seeing or reading, which sounds very interesting and, is very tempting to say, oh my gosh, if we only did this, we would get this. But we have to be very careful about this because you and I both know there is no, if we only did this, we could do this. So
absolutely.
the conversation has to be, what is the depth and the breadth of the things that we know about, or I should say, understand our current understanding, which is changes over
Right.
time. What are the things that, based on research, not because somebody said it, I said this is true, so it must be true. Are we questioning what we hear? And are we always coming back to, we are in a very difficult spot right now? And what is missing is our view of teachers and their brilliance and our
No,
children.
and teachers as professional, being able to
Oh,
make sound professional
yes,
judgments, and really talking about professional learning. And you are the consummate professional learner. I mean, you're constantly reading, studying, asking questions. And I think without that professional learning, and I know you agree with this, it's very hard to make a professional decision or
it
to
is.
color outside the lines or to be what I call a positive deviant and just do what's best for kids. It's really hard.
Exactly.
It takes a lot of courage as well. Um, where do you see the hope today? Because I'm finding, and I know people are very discouraged. It's a very hard time to be teaching, although it's always been a very hard time to be teaching. But where do you see the hope today? Even with all the challenges that we're facing, where the mandates that some of them, I would say many of them are not sound, are not what's best for our students. Um, but without hope, I think it's really hard to go on teaching from day to day.
Right. And part of that challenge, I want to connect to that, is not just that the mandates are saying this is what you have to do. They're taking it a step further. And this is what you're not allowed to do, because we have made the decision now that these things, and in fact, one bill in one state even said choice reading is not based on the research. So where is my hope? Oh my goodness, there's no question about that. The hope resides in teachers. The hope resides in teachers that while their hearts are breaking right now, and they are drowning right now, not because they don't believe in kids, but because they know what they're being told to do. Do this program. This is going to work. It's always going to work. We have to keep our hope on teachers. We have to keep our hope on, in your books, you talk all the time about professional learning. And to me, professional learning is, let's just hire somebody to come to our district and plop it in the calendar, boom, done.
That doesn't work.
I'm sorry, um, uh, professional PD, professional development versus professional learning.
Yeah.
And professional learning is just as I don't get up in the morning and think, oh, I have to read this research paper. I get up in the morning and think, oh my goodness, this research is incredible. But I don't just want to read it, Regie. I think the hope also resides in having conversations around it. And that's part of the issue, being told this is the way it is and don't talk to me about it.
And don't you think the hope is, I know you would agree with this, the hope is with this, is with the students, is with the children that
Oh,
we teach. I mean, that has been for me the most, and I know this is true for you, the most rewarding part of the work that I've done over many decades is seeing what kids are capable of when they have choice, when they know they're respected and seen and loved, when we're working on projects and work that matters, that it's not just requirements or meeting the standards. Because I know that every time that I go into a classroom, and particularly when I've gone through a tough time in my life, and those children just in front of you, they bring you back to what's really important, right? I know that's the part that you loved.
yes. But I think that to do that, and that's part of the hope too, we have to learn to pay attention. I remember Mari Clay once said the lesson plan is sitting at the table waiting to be written. And I
Yeah.
always have remembered that. And so when we've got all of these things happening around us as teachers, even though they're reality, we have to step outside the immediate reality and create the most important reality, which are those kids in front of you. Just as I do with monk seals and sea turtles, what do you see? What do you notice? What is that child trying to help you to understand? How are you going to address that? And you know, Regie, as a part of that, I think it's so important. I carry a little tiny notebook with me everywhere. And when something really strikes me, I write it down. When something is important to me, I would encourage teachers, even with all the noise going on, keep a kid watching notebook. Nobody else needs to see it, but they can. But not only what are you seeing, but more importantly, what are you doing as a teacher that you're really proud of in that moment? There is no too small.
And yeah,
It's all big.
and you're using that notebook as a reflection, and you're saying as a reflection, but also to use it as a celebration. And we haven't talked about that, but I think it's so important for those of us that are working with teachers, principals, administrators, that we are celebrating the work that people are doing or trying to do. Because without that celebration, it's just like you're just going through the motions. And especially,
Definitely.
I think for new teachers coming into the profession, it's such a hard time. I wanted to ask you, what advice do you have for new teachers? Because they're overwhelmed when they're coming in. Um, they haven't they haven't had time to to read all the research, and their expectations are very high for them from administrators. And I know new teachers walk down the hallways and they sort of panic when they see, oh my gosh, this teacher's got her bulletin boards all done, and I don't even know what I'm going to put up yet for open house.
Right.
But
Well,
if,
one of those things would be to find your people. Find the people. When I first started on Twitter, and I'm pretty active on Twitter, I one of the things I love about Twitter is that you can follow certain people and come back to them every day. And so I had certain people, you in my life, oh my gosh, so many people, that the first thing I would do every morning is look for inspiration. How can we celebrate ourselves and celebrate others without inspiration? And even if I don't have them in front of me, or if I was in a school where we're not getting that, find the people, whether it's Rachel Gabriel, researcher, whether it's Regie Routman, Kylene Beers, whoever that is, find the people that are sharing what celebrates teachers, what doesn't put them into a pigeonhole. We've got way too much of that. And I would add, there's this wonderful block feature on Twitter. And so the people who are constantly saying things that are negative about teachers and negative to people, use that block button and use it wisely, because we cannot celebrate ourselves and celebrate others if we're hearing all of this negative. And unfortunately, Twitter does have a dark side, but it also has a beautiful side. So find your people, start every day with them. That's what I tell teachers to do. Find someone who inspires you. And the first thing every day is look at their blog. What is that? That's your from the heart medicine that
and
is
Mary,
going to sustain you.
sorry for interrupting, but I wanted to read a couple of things when we talked earlier when we were planning for this session. And I asked you what your advice was to new teachers. I just want to say a couple of things. I'm quoting a few things that you said. You said the most important thing is to find your inner joy.
Mhm.
And I would totally agree with that. And to create an environment, I'm quoting you, create an environment that nurtures all learners,
Mhm.
and to see teaching through the life of a child. What would it be like to be in this classroom with this
Yeah.
teacher all day? And that question really helped me to just shut up and listen. I think some of the reason we go into teaching is because we all have a lot to say, we have strong opinions, but to really be a listener and be listening to hear what students, what our colleagues have to say, rather than listening to respond right away. Um, you talked a little bit, because I know we're down to like the last few minutes. You call the change that you made the big leap.
Oh.
Um, and I want you to talk a little bit about one of the things that really impressed me about that. You told a story, and that's a part of you that I love. You're a storyteller. You're reflecting on stories. You're writing stories that are personal and professional all the time on your blogs. Um, and so much a part of what I've written about is about stories, respecting, responding to kids' stories, teacher stories, good literature. But you told the story of the first time that you went to Hawaii. Tell that story, because what I remember about it, but you said that every time you got off the plane in Hawaii, and this is still true for you, that you felt a sense of peace and calm. And
Yes.
really, what I think when you're telling people or suggesting that they look at a blog, you're really saying, find your place of peace and calm,
Right.
wherever that might be, right? So
Right.
a little,
Right.
yeah. And then also you talked about not knowing how the story ends. So part of having that peace and calm, you let go of um, not having to know how everything was going to turn out, because we don't. We actually have
Right.
no control over so many things. And I think
Right.
that's a really good message to end with. In how did you find that sense of peace and calm? That big leap. I don't know anybody else, and you're a single person that would have had the courage. We're similar in age at this stage in our life to just leave everything behind and take this big leap. And you didn't know what was going to happen. And teaching is like that. We don't know. We don't
It
know.
is.
Well, maybe we have a new principal this year we didn't know was coming in. We have new kids coming in. Um, but talk about that big leap, because it really does, I think, relate to finding that place of peace and calm, and
Right.
a lot of courage to do what you did. But it
Well,
changed
and
your life for the better in so many ways.
every way, in every possible way. And I've actually been coming here 30 years. My parents invited me to move home to work on my doctorate. So to thank them, we came to Hawaii. So I always knew this was my place. But I was watching a TV show called The Big Leap, which is where that comes from. And one of the dancers on this show was crying over what was happening in her life. And that's the words that the choreographer said that changed my life. He said, "Isn't it more exciting not to know how the story ends? I booked an Airbnb to get myself over here and figure it out later. And within a month and a half, I sold everything. I was on a plane, and I've never looked back. But I think that one of the biggest things for me is that, we talk about that sense of joy from a child. But I learned to see the world through the eyes of a child. And I wonder if we can truly understand a child who sees the world that way. I often wonder if we don't see the world through those eyes and a sense of joy. Everything for me is about a sense of joy. We always say stop and smell the roses, but sometimes it's more like, oh, nice rose. I have to go someplace. Whereas I have been known on many occasions to sit on the side of the dock for 4 hours waiting for an octopus to come out of that hole and swim away as I run after him, getting photographs of this brilliance. And so that for me is the pinnacle of what I've learned, that not only see the joy in nature, see the joy in teachers, see the joy in children, and see the joy. Right now, I can't even unfettered joy of sitting here looking at you on my screen and having a conversation with you. See the joy of having conversations, because what's in here, we say that about children, we got to make what's here, put it out there so we can hear it. Well, I can't make sense of my life without having conversations with other people. I can, and you ask about the research, I can't make sense of the research. And that's what teachers need to understand. Ask those questions, but let's make sense of the research, not just read it, but what does it mean to me as a teacher? And that's just, I wish for everyone to have the kind of calm. In all my life, I just turned 74 last month. And in all my life of moving all over the world as a military child, no place has ever felt like home, like where I am right now. Find your home, find your people, find people who honor you and appreciate you, and let the people who don't, let them fade into the background. Because I want to end with one last thing that you have always, always, always helped me understand, and that's kind of my final thought here. What you say in your beautiful book over and over is, you are enough. And so I want to say right now to teachers, you are what we need right now to make the world, the professional world, the personal world, to make everything right. You are the hope I see every time I get up in the morning and think about we go from here. You are enough. You are wonderful. You are perfect. And don't ever lose sight of yourself. Get up every morning, look in that mirror, and know I am good for children. I am good for this profession. I am good for teaching and learning and living, and all of those things matter to me. You are enough, and we celebrate and we appreciate you so much.
We appreciate, I'm going to say we, the professional teachers everywhere, we appreciate you for all the gifts you've given us your whole teaching life. And I love the fact that you are now slowing down, not just to smell the roses, but really to enjoy your full life. And it's just great talking with you today and seeing you. I miss you.
I
um,
miss you too.
and having a conversation with you. So thank you for
Thank you.
being here.
Thank you for this blessing.
Thank you.